Before the Vatican locked its doors in silence, whispers spoke of an Ethiopian Bible older than Rome itself, a scripture carrying the Book of Enoch, the Gospel of Mary, and sacred pages the Western world erased. Hidden in shadows, guarded in vaults, this Bible tells a story the world was never meant to hear. A story that questions power, rewrites memory, and ignites the soul with truths that heal and unsettle all at once. Why did the Vatican fear these pages? Why would the guardians of faith tremble before words carved in fire and stone, words that refuse to vanish? Tonight you will journey through mysteries sealed for centuries. The Ark of the Covenant, said to rest in Axum, the voice of Mary rising in forgotten Gospels, the Book of Enoch revealing angels who broke the heavens' law. You will see why Ethiopia preserved what Rome erased, and why those truths, alive and untamed, still challenge the center of Christian history. This is not just history, it is a doorway to memory, a healing remembrance that refuses to die. Listen closely, for in every forgotten gospel lies a question that could change everything we thought we knew. And as you walk with me through these secrets, let your heart answer. Should truths be buried, or should they breathe again? Tell me in the comments below what your soul feels. If this journey touches you, share your light, like, subscribe, and let these hidden voices rise once more. The Forbidden Books, Enoch, Jubilees, and Mary's Gospel. In the silence of forgotten centuries, there were books that once burned with light, only to be cast aside by councils fearful of their fire. Yet in Ethiopia, the pages endured, cradled like sacred children, never silenced, never erased. The Book of Enoch tells of angels who looked upon the earth with wonder and desire, stepping down from heaven to walk among humanity, bringing knowledge of stars, of healing herbs, of the mysteries written in the sky. These watchers, radiant yet flawed, gave humanity wisdom that shook the heavens themselves, and the story was too dangerous for Rome to keep alive. Imagine, beloved listener, what it means if wisdom did not flow only from slow discovery, but from angels who defied heaven's law. In Jubilees, time itself is divided into sacred rhythms, each moment wrapped in divine intention, reminding us that history is not chaos, but song. The Gospel of Mary dares to give voice to a woman, not as a silent figure, but as a teacher, a bearer of light, whispering truths that disciples struggled to accept. How healing, how powerful, to remember that faith once carried the voice of both men and women, equally chosen, equally beloved. These books, exiled by Rome, still live in Ethiopia's churches, sung in chants of Ge'ez, reminding us that truth cannot be buried by decree. What lesson flows from this? That even if the world silences your story, memory will guard it until it blooms again. Think of your own life. What truths within you have been pushed aside, declared unworthy? Like Enoch, like Mary, those truths are waiting, alive, untamed, and perhaps you are their guardian. Ethiopia. Before Rome, the true ancient roots of Christianity. Long before Rome crowned popes and built basilicas of marble, the highlands of Ethiopia carved their faith into stone, whispered prayers into the wind, and painted gospels with the colors of crushed flowers. This land did not borrow its belief from the West. It carried a covenant older than councils, rooted in a union of Solomon and Sheba, remembered in the line of their son Menelik. In Ethiopia, Christianity was not a conquest but a memory, flowing like the rivers of Axum, woven into the chants of monks who still rise before dawn. Imagine a faith untouched by empires, pure as spring water drawn from a mountain well. It was here, not in Rome, that sacred texts were preserved in their fullness. Here that the Ark of the Covenant is said to rest in silence, guarded by a single monk whose eyes have seen what no emperor dares to touch. What does this reveal to us? That the heart of faith does not always beat in the center of power. Sometimes it hides in mountains, in caves, in quiet prayers. The Ethiopian Bible is older than the Latin Vulgate, fuller than the Roman canon, carrying more books, more voices, more memory. And this is why the Vatican feared it, for it reminds us that the story of God is not owned by one city, one council, one throne. It is a river that flows wherever hearts remember. If Ethiopia could guard such treasures for centuries, what sacred truth might you be guarding in your own soul? Perhaps the lesson here is that faith does not need to seek permission to exist. It only needs to breathe. Solomon, Sheba, and Menelik. The Ark's journey to Africa. The story turns now to a love remembered across millennia. The meeting of Solomon, king of wisdom, and Sheba, queen of fire and vision. From their union came Menelik, a child who carried both Israel's blood and Ethiopia's promise. Tradition tells us that Menelik journeyed to Jerusalem, and when he returned, he did not come alone. He carried with him the Ark of the Covenant, not stolen but given, cradled by divine will, carried across deserts and mountains until it rested in Axum, where it is said to remain still. This is no small claim. The Ark, which split seas and shattered walls, the vessel of divine presence, hidden not in Rome, not in Europe, but in Africa's highlands. Imagine the fear this sparked in Vatican halls, for if true, Ethiopia holds not only the bloodline of Solomon, but the holiest relic of all, a living testimony that the covenant of God was never bound to Europe's story. To this day, no eyes may look upon the Ark, but the chosen guardian who spends his life in silence beside it. And yet, its presence is felt in the prayers of millions, in the chants that rise like incense over Axum's hills. What lesson does this give us? That the greatest treasures of spirit are not displayed in glass or guarded by armies. They are carried quietly, hidden in faith, protected by devotion. The Ark's journey is also our journey, the reminder that divine power chooses unlikely places, humble guardians, forgotten lands. Perhaps the covenant is not lost. Perhaps it was never Rome's to guard. Perhaps, like the Ark, your own soul holds a sacred fire, waiting not to be conquered, but to be honored. The Ethiopian Canon versus the Roman Canon. What was left out? The pages of the Ethiopian Bible breathe with a fullness that Rome could not contain, while the Western canon closed its gates at the Council of Trent, sealing truth within the narrow walls of power. The Ethiopian canon remained open like a sky unmeasured. Here you find the Book of Enoch resting between Genesis and Exodus, the Book of Jubilees marking time like a sacred heartbeat, the Shepherd of Hermas guiding souls with visions, the Apocalypse of Peter daring to describe heaven and judgment in vivid strokes. These were not fragments or footnotes. They were scripture, read aloud in candlelit monasteries where the air still hums with ancient chants. The Roman canon, shaped by councils and kings, left them behind, branding them apocrypha, dangerous, unnecessary. Yet the Ethiopian Church never abandoned them. Imagine the difference. a faith shaped by remembering instead of forgetting, a scripture rich not only with law and prophecy, but with visions of angels, stories of women as teachers, and mysteries that stretch beyond the stars. Think of how much changes when the Gospel of Mary is honored alongside the voices of Peter and Paul. In Ethiopia, Mary speaks as a prophet, a vessel of light whose words bring peace where others bring dispute. In Rome, her voice was silenced, her gospel fragmented, her memory reduced to whispers. And what about Enoch, the man who walked with God until he was no more? In Western Bibles, his story ends in silence. In Ethiopia, his book unfolds in radiant visions. Angels descending, giants born of forbidden unions, the Watchers teaching men the secrets of the heavens. Which version speaks more to the vast mystery of creation, the edited silence, or the untamed song? The Vatican feared these books not because they were false, but because they were too true, too alive, too unwilling to bow to control. The lesson here is simple yet searing. Sometimes what you are told to forget is exactly what you must remember. Perhaps in your own life there are truths you've hidden, stories you've silenced because others called them unworthy. The Ethiopian canon reminds us that memory is stronger than decree. Truth will always find a way to breathe again. And as you reflect, ask yourself, what part of your own story is waiting to be honored? The silent vaults of the Vatican. Suppression and erasure. Deep beneath marble floors and gilded altars, the Vatican hides more than relics. There are vaults where silence is thicker than stone, chambers where forbidden manuscripts are locked away, not destroyed, but buried in a darkness colder than fire. Inside lie copies of the Book of Enoch, fragments of the Gospel of Mary, translations of the Kebra Nagast, all sealed with wax and warnings. Non videre, non legere, do not look, do not read. Silence became the Church's weapon. Instead of fire, there was absence. Instead of debate, there was forgetting. But silence does not erase truth. It only makes it whisper louder. Imagine the archivist who stumbled on these texts, his fingers trembling as he turned pages Rome had forbidden. Father Luca, reading the words of Enoch, wrote in his journal, "This changes everything." Imagine the scholar who copied a gospel passage by memory before his superior threw it into the flames. Imagine the young archivist Matteo who uncovered a letter from a pope himself admitting fear of Ethiopia's story. They were told to remain silent, yet their whispers still echo in the corridors. What does this mean for us? It means history is not only what is written, but what is hidden. And what is hidden often carries the power to heal the deepest wounds. The Vatican's silence teaches us a paradox. What you bury out of fear will rise one day with greater strength. And perhaps that is why you feel drawn to these stories now, because silence has stretched too long and memory is calling to be heard. Let this be a reminder in your own journey. When others try to silence your truth, guard it. One day it will rise. The living stones of Lalibela, churches carved from memory. High in the Ethiopian highlands lies a city carved not upward but downward, where churches are hewn from volcanic rock, hidden in the earth like secrets remembered from heaven. Lalibela, with its 11 stone churches, is a testament to a faith that breathes in silence and stone. No scaffolding, no blueprints, only hammer, chisel, prayer, and vision. Pilgrims still walk barefoot through narrow trenches, their voices rising in Ge'ez, the ancient tongue older than Rome's Latin, echoing in walls that seem to breathe. From above, the churches form a pattern, a sacred map said to mirror both Jerusalem and the celestial order of Enoch's visions. Angels, the stories say, worked by night, finishing what human hands began by day. The Vatican feared Lalibela not for its beauty, but for its defiance. How could stone carved in Africa hold mysteries older than Rome's cathedrals? How could a hidden city reflect the heavens more faithfully than basilicas of gold? Yet there it stands, silent, untouched, alive with prayer. Lalibela is not just architecture, it is memory written in rock. It reminds us that true faith does not need marble or crowns. It needs only devotion, hands willing to carve and hearts willing to believe. And here lies a lesson for us all. Your life, too, can be carved into something lasting, something beautiful. Not by power or wealth, but by faith, patience, and love. Just as those stone walls still stand after centuries of wind and rain, the truths you carve into your soul will endure when all else fades. So ask yourself, what are you carving with your days? Are you building walls of fear or sanctuaries of love? Lalibela whispers across centuries. Even in silence, even in shadows, the living stone remembers. And if stone can hold memory, how much more can your heart hold? Symbols, prophecies, and the three natures of Christ. In Ethiopia's carved chapels, symbols shimmer upon the stone, circles within stars, wings with 6 eyes, crosses branching into flames. To the Western eye they look strange, undecipherable, but to the faithful they are not decorations, they are memories written in shape and silence. Each mark whispers of mysteries the Vatican once feared, visions from the Book of Enoch, prophecies carried in the Kebra Nagast, prayers that speak of Christ not as 2 natures bound in careful doctrine, but as a mystery of 3, divine, human, and spirit, woven into one living flame. Rome called it heresy, yet in Ethiopia it was never heresy, only reverence. Imagine the courage it takes to hold a truth the world dismisses, to keep chanting the words others erased. What if the Vatican silenced this because it revealed that Christ was not confined to categories, but breathed beyond them? A faith like this heals, because it teaches us that we too are mysteries, more than one thing, more than what others define us to be. The lesson is simple, but radiant. Do not let someone else narrow your soul. You are body, spirit, and something deeper still. Mary's forgotten voice, the power of women in early Christianity. In the Roman canon, Mary Magdalene's name drifts like a whisper, yet in Ethiopia she speaks with a voice clear as bells in the night. The Gospel of Mary describes her not as a quiet shadow, but as a prophet, entrusted with visions of the soul's journey after death, teaching even the disciples who doubted her. When Peter questioned, she answered with peace, carrying no anger, only sorrow, as if she already knew her story would be silenced. But Ethiopia never forgot. Her gospel was read in Ge'ez, sung in liturgies by candlelight, passed from mother to child as living memory. How healing it is to know that the earliest faith honored her as a teacher, not as an outcast. To remember her is to remember that women too were chosen to carry light. If this truth had remained in the West, how different might history have been? Think of your own life. Have you silenced your own voice because someone told you it was not worthy? Mary's gospel whispers to you even now. Your voice carries heaven's fire, and no counsel can take that away. Perhaps this is why the Vatican feared her words, because they remind us that truth does not bend to hierarchy. It blossoms wherever it is planted. Relics and rivalry, the Ark, the Cross, and the Vatican's fear. The Vatican's vaults gleam with relics, bones of saints, thorns from crowns, slivers of the cross, each one encased in gold and guarded by marble. Yet in Ethiopia there are relics no pope has touched. Illuminated manuscripts older than Rome, icons of Christ with skin dark as earth, and above all, the Ark of the Covenant said to rest in Axum, watched by a single guardian until death. Imagine the fear this stirred. If the Ark, the very voice of God, is not in Rome but in Africa, then all of Rome's relics bow in silence. There were attempts, quiet missions, even whispers of Operation Exodus, a plan to bring the Ark to Rome, but the chapel gates never opened. Soldiers stopped, trembling, swearing they heard thunder in a clear sky. The Ark remained, and Rome's silence grew heavier. What lesson flows from this? That power is not proven by what you own, but by what you guard in faith. Ethiopia teaches us that the holiest treasures are not displayed but lived, not paraded but prayed over. And perhaps you too hold an ark within, the covenant of your own soul. Guard it with reverence, for no one else can. Shadows of history, war, silence, and betrayal. History remembers wars with dates and treaties, but the shadows tell another story. In 1937, at Debre, Libanos, thousands of monks and novices were slaughtered under Italian orders, their bodies thrown into a gorge, their manuscripts burned or stolen. The Vatican remained silent. No protest, no cry, only silence heavy as stone. Among those killed were scribes working on a codex that included the Book of Baruch, the Book of Tobit, and passages of Enoch. That codex vanished, perhaps carried away under ash and blood, perhaps still hidden in a cave guarded by memory. Silence became betrayal, and betrayal became history. Yet Ethiopia remembers every year, lighting candles not only for the dead, but for the missing words. And what do we learn here? That silence can wound as deeply as violence. The Vatican's refusal to speak was itself a scar. In our lives, too, silence can betray. When we see injustice and choose not to act, when we know truth and choose not to speak. The lesson is tender but sharp. Healing begins when silence ends. The Ethiopian Witness, a faith untouched by Rome. Far from marble halls and gilded altars, Ethiopia's faith continues to breathe, unbroken, unbent, untouched by Rome's rewriting. In the mountain monasteries, chants still rise in Ge'ez, incense still curls through narrow stone windows, the Ark is still guarded in silence, and the Ethiopian Bible is still read in its fullness, carrying books Rome tried to forget. Their witness is not loud, not political, not hungry for power. It is carved into rock, sung into the air, remembered in symbols and stories that outlived empires. And perhaps this is what troubles the Vatican most. Not rebellion, not heresy, but memory. A memory older than Rome, alive in every prayer of Ethiopia's faithful. The lesson here is the most healing of all. Truth does not die when ignored. It lives in hearts that remember. Ethiopia reminds us that we do not need to chase power to guard the sacred. We only need to live it, to breathe it, to carry it quietly and faithfully across time. And you, dear soul, are part of this same witness. Your memory, your voice, your truth is needed. Do not let it be buried. Speak it, live it, guard it, as Ethiopia has, and let the silence of centuries break into song. And so, after walking through the silence of vaults and the songs of stone, after hearing the whispers of Enoch, the voice of Mary, the memory of Sheba and Solomon, we arrive at the heart of it all. Truth cannot be buried. Ethiopia has shown us that even when power hides, even when councils decree, even when history tries to erase, memory survives. The Ethiopian Bible, fuller and older than Rome's canon, breathes with the light of forgotten books, books that speak of angels who crossed heaven's boundary, women who taught with authority, visions that stretch beyond the stars. These pages remind us that the story of God was never meant to be small. It was always meant to be vast, healing, and alive. Imagine for a moment the ark resting in silence at Axum, guarded not by armies, but by a single humble monk. Imagine the chants that rise each dawn in gaze, words older than Latin, voices older than marble. Imagine the stone churches of Lalibela, carved into the earth, as if heaven bent low to touch the ground. These are not fantasies. They are living witness, testifying across centuries that faith endures not because of power, but because of devotion. And perhaps that is the truest lesson of all, that your faith, your truth, your inner covenant does not need to be displayed or approved. It only needs to be lived. There is something profoundly healing in this realization. We spend so much of life fearing silence, fearing rejection, fearing that our story will be forgotten. Yet Ethiopia whispers to us, memory holds, truth breathes, God writes in places no hand can erase. Just as the Vatican's silence could not extinguish the Ethiopian canon, so too the doubts of others cannot erase the sacred within you. You are not fragile paper. You are living stone. You are not forgotten words. You are a gospel still being written. And so I ask you, gently but boldly, what do you carry within that deserves to be spoken? What have you silenced that longs to sing again? Do you believe that truth should be guarded by fear or set free to heal the world? Share your thoughts in the comments, for your voice may awaken another soul tonight. Debate if you must, question if you wish, but do not be silent, for silence is the true betrayal. If you feel that this journey has touched your spirit, if these words about the Ethiopian Bible, the Ark of the Covenant, the Gospel of Mary, and the forgotten wisdom of Enoch have brought light into your heart, then I invite you to walk with me further. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and let your presence be a beacon. Each gesture, each word of encouragement is a flame that keeps this work alive. A flame that helps me continue to share these hidden stories and healing truths. And if you feel moved to offer even a small bit of energy to sustain these offerings, know that your kindness is felt deeply, as priceless as breath itself. What Rome tried to forget, Ethiopia still remembers. And now you too are part of that remembrance. Carry it with reverence, speak it with courage, and let it heal the places where silence has wounded. The night may be long, but truth is a fire that cannot die. Thank you, with all my heart, for walking this path with me. May peace rest upon you, may your days be filled with light, and may your soul always remember that you are part of a story too vast to ever be silenced.